Hello there, people of the internet. Normally, whenever I watch videos about what cartridges to get for some sort of end-of-the-world, rule of no law, SHTF sort of situation, some hypothetical situation that ain't gonna happen, people oftentimes go into the top 5 best cartridges that you can possibly get your hands on, right? And it normally has a lot to do with, like, price point, availability, and capability of the cartridge. But I want to go ahead and do a little spin on this, and I want to talk about the 5 best non-mainstream cartridges that you can get your hands on for an end-of-the-world SHTF sort of situation. And whenever I say non-mainstream, what that essentially means is no cartridges that you can find basically everywhere, like no 223 5.56 or 308 or 30-06 or 9mm or anything like that. And I think I have a pretty gosh darn solid set 5. So let me look over here and see what I got. So this is in no particular order, but number 5, we're gonna go ahead and say 7.5 French. 7.5 French, it's not one that you find very often, and whenever you do find it, there's very few companies that are actually making it, and it's expensive and hard to find. But as far as the cartridge itself goes, it definitely falls into the non-mainstream category. But the semi-auto rifles and bolt-action rifles out there both chambered in the 7.5 French, and the 7.5 French is a cartridge that is on par with the ballistic capabilities of a 308. It's a 150 grain bullet moving at about 2,800 feet per second. So it's a full power rifle cartridge by every stretch of the imagination, but the case length is a little bit longer. So if you're a hand loader firing from, say, a bolt action rifle or something like that, you might be able to make it a little bit more spicy, perhaps even put it on par with that of 30-06. It takes a 308 diameter bullet, which is fantastic. Those are absolutely all over the place. It's a really good little cartridge setup, especially since you can get semi-auto rifles chambered in it, and there's a bunch of bolt actions that are chambered in it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the greatest just because of a lack of availability, but the whole point of what we're talking about here is looking at non-mainstream cartridges. So for a non-mainstream cartridge, I think the 7.5 French is a fantastic go-to cartridge for an SHTF sort of situation. Alright, number 4 on the list, I'm going to have to give to the 6.5 and potentially even 7.35 Carcano, but we're going to focus on the 6.5 Carcano. That is a non-mainstream cartridge, and the reason why I am putting this on the list is because there's a lot of Carcano rifles out there on the market right now. Like, you can go out and get yourself a Carcano for like $150, maybe even cheaper than that if you find yourself a sporterized one or something like that. But the 6.5 Carcano cartridge is definitely the falling point of the rifle series because it's like over $1 a round whenever you do find it, and it's expensive and not necessarily something that you come by very often. But all of that being said, these rifles, especially if you get like a carbine version, one that does not have the gain twist rifling that's been cut down, they're so lightweight and handy, and the 6.5 Carcano cartridge already recoils at like a really it's got a really light recoil behind it. It's a 160 grain bullet moving at about 2,200 feet per second. So it's a full power rifle round, but it's not like a 30-06 level of full power rifle round. It's more in realm with an intermediate cartridge. And these things are delightful to shoot if you use the right size bullets, like the right diameter bullet, and you use your heavier bullets, which is what was designed around these Carcano rifles. Then you can have a very accurate rifle. I really like these guns, and they don't get near the appreciation that they absolutely deserve. Some of them have some mechanical issues, like the Mauser system that is designed inside these things. Every now and then, if you're using like a bad clip or you have a bad spring in there or something like that, as you get to your last round, it won't quite feed properly. So that's what you get for a 100-year-old rifle. That's just the name of the game. That was the technology that existed back in the day, and that was what the Italians decided to go with. But as far as the actual rifles go, if we ignore the availability of the ammunition simply because we're going with non-mainstream cartridges, dude, it's a really good one. It's fairly lightweight, it's extraordinarily capable. You can do a lot with that 6.5 Carcano round, and from these little tiny carbine rifles, they're so nice. They're so nice, dude. I highly recommend you getting at least one Carcano carbine to go out and do some plinking with. Alright, number 3 on the list is going to be 8mm Mauser. I would recommend getting yourself like a sporterized Mauser, because we're looking at firearms for practical purposes, not for collectability purposes. And you can go out and get a sporterized Mauser for like 200 bucks. Maybe 300, depending on where it is you're going, transfer fees, taxes, shipping, all the other stuff that goes in line with that. But the bottom line is you can get a full power bolt action rifle for not a lot of money because it's been sporterized. Oftentimes they'll have iron sights of some kind. Oftentimes, since they're sporterized, they'll have a way to mount a scope on it. There's a lot of different options as to what you're going to find out there on the sporterized market. But the reason why I say 8mm Mauser is because right now in 2025, there is a lot of 8mm Mauser surplus on the market. A lot of it is Turkish and Greek ammo, but there's also Czech and Yugoslavian ammo that can be found. And it's very inexpensive for a full power rifle round. These are 150 grain bullets. They're going to move at about 3,000 feet per second. And you can pick it up for like 40 cents a shot, which is nuts. This will not always be the case. You are going to enter a point in time where the surplus dries up, and then these are going to be more like $1 a round. There for a long time, that's what 8mm Mauser was. It was like $1 a round. But now we just have so much 8mm Mauser surplus coming into the United States to the point to where this stuff has fallen to be cheap again. It's not quite as cheap as it used to be. It used to be like 5 cents a shot. But nowadays you're looking at about 30 to 40 cents a shot depending on where you buy it from, if you buy in bulk, what sort of hazmat fees you'll have to pay, etc., etc. You can get a lot of ammo for not a lot of money at a dirt cheap, sporterized bolt-action rifle. Get yourself a Yugoslavian Mauser or a Czech Mauser or a Spanish Mauser or a Turkish Mauser or something along those lines. And you can find one for not a lot of money. And you got yourself a full power rifle and a bunch of ammo for not a lot of money. Now that being said, they are corrosive. You do want to clean your rifle afterward, but just use hot water and oil. It's really not that hard to clean corrosive ammo out of your rifle. Alright, up next on the list, I'm going to probably give it to 7.5 Swiss. And the reason why I give it to 7.5 Swiss is because proper 7.5 Swiss ammo through some of these surplus 7.5 Swiss rifles are stupidly accurate, like incredibly, insanely accurate, like professional match grade rifles level of accurate. As a matter of fact, I think the world record for the longest shot is made with one of these K31 rifles using iron sights, and it's at 2,200 yards or something like that, which is absolutely insane. So if you need a precision rifle, you can pick up one of these right here for not a lot of money considering how much rifle you actually get. And I would also say the 7.5 Swiss is a non-mainstream cartridge. It's definitely a severely underrated one. I feel like if we wanted some really accurate rifles nowadays, we should start making modern rifles in that 7.5 Swiss chambering. But the thing is, there's already so much really well-bit rifles out there. They already exist, and they're already out there on the market, and you just can't make this quality of gun for the amount of money that you can buy one of these guns at. They are stupidly nice guns, and they're stupidly accurate guns, and they're cripplingly underrated. You think that 6.5 Creedmoor is an accurate round? Go up against someone who knows how to use a 7.5 Swiss, and then we can talk about real accurate rounds. Alright, last on the list for the best non-mainstream SHTF cartridges, I'm going to give it to 45 Long Colt. I thought about giving it to 44 Magnum, but that's just a little bit too mainstream for me. I'm going to give it to 45 Long Colt for a couple of reasons. Hear me out on this. Number one, it can be ran in both a lever action, like what I have right here, and a revolver. This way, you only have to worry about having one type of ammunition, and you can run your primary and secondary sidearm, both with the same kinds of ammunition. You don't have to worry about any logistical issues. On top of that, 45 Long Colt from a full-length barrel like this, that's a powerful round. Like, that is dramatically underestimated. It is... How do I want to say this? If you think that 45 ACP is a powerful cartridge, modern 45 Long Colt is significantly more powerful. On average, a 45 ACP is going to move from, what, a 1911 barrel about 800 feet per second? Well, a 45 Long Colt from a revolver barrel is going to be moving more like 1,100 feet per second, maybe even faster than that, depending on bullet weight and powder charge, and that's just regular stuff. You start looking at plus piece stuff, and you start looking at some real good velocities. You throw that same cartridge into a full-length barrel like this, and you're looking more at 1600 feet per second. And that's a 200 to 240 grain bullet, somewhere around that ballpark. That's a lot of power going downrange. That is like entering rifle levels of ballistic energy onto a target going downrange. That's enough power to be able to handle basically anything that you would ever need to handle. But the beauty about 45 Long Colting in SHTF situation, it's a rimmed cartridge, and it's a flat wall cartridge, which means that you can reload that thing basically indefinitely because it headspace is on the rim of the cartridge, and it's a straight wall cartridge. Did I say flat wall or straight wall? It's a straight wall cartridge, so there's no neck or taper or anything like that. And just as a result, it is really, really easy to reload something like that. On top of that, because of the way that it's designed, and because it is a large bore projectile and large bore caliber, it handles black powder and black powder fouling extremely well. So in a bad situation, if you find yourself making your own gunpowder, loading black powder into a 45 Long Colt, you'll be able to get more rounds on target before you lose you lose accuracy due to powder fouling than you would with something else like, say, a 357 Magnum loaded with black powder or something like that. Just because the large bore you can send, like the large bore rounds are just better at handling black powder fouling. There's more surface area that black powder fouling needs to cover before it starts to build up, and as a result you can get a lot more rounds downrange before you start noticing any real inaccuracy issues. I think the 45 Long Colt is a really, really good non-mainstream cartridge. I was going to give it a 44 Magnum because you also have 44 Special, but that's, like I said, a little bit too mainstream in my personal opinion, unlike the 45 Long Colt, which is to the point to where people haven't even heard of it. I'm sure somebody's going to go into the comments down below and tell me it's 45 Colt, not 45 Long Colt. Yes, I understand 45 Long Colt is a slang term made to differentiate 45 Colt from 45 Schofield. I understand that. Fantastic. Thanks for pointing it out for the 1000th time. Whether you like it or not, names change. If 45 Long Colt is literally on the boxes that are being sold, sometimes you see 45 Colt, but I have seen 45 Long Colting. It's printed on certain firearms and whatnot, etc., etc. Just because that was the name of the cartridge 100 years ago doesn't mean that's still the only designation for the cartridge, but that's an argument for another video. Those are my 5 non-mainstream SHTF cartridges that I think are not only cripplingly underrated, but if you had those and just those, dude, you would be pretty well set. I think that you could handle a good variety of basically anything that life would throw at you. So thanks for watching, appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.